Got a very special guest joining us now. It's Drive Guys, of course. Thanks for being with us. Former NFL VP of officiating. Back at it this year, NFL on Fox Rules analyst, Mikey Rulebook. Mike Pereria with us. Mike, it's so great to have you back on Sactown Sports. How are you, sir?
You know, I'm well. I really am. I mean, I had to take a year off, of course, since I had major back surgery last year, but I'm on the mend. I can walk a couple of miles a day. I can't tie my damn shoes, but I can at least walk. Can't even put on my socks. I have to have a little helper thing to slide it over the toes and then pull them up. But I am so much better, and I'm fully back to work, which was one of my goals, was to get back to work.
Yeah, Mike is coming back from 8.5 hour back procedure, and Mike, we're thrilled that you're back to work, and we're more thrilled that you're feeling better. And I got to ask you, as you were recuperating, how often did you sit there and think about, Whitey and Drapes on 11:40 and think, gee, I got to get back on with those guys?
Well, I actually thought, I wonder if they're going to call. I mean, I wonder if they're going to call and say, now, what did you see on TV that you wouldn't have seen if you were in the broadcast booth? I mean, can you tell us why the Niners did this? Because now you're a fan. You're not even working. But no, I figured you were just being nice. You were just waiting till I felt a little better.
Yeah. And by the way, let me also add this. Mike's book, After Further Review, it's a great book. It's an excellent read, so I want to recommend that as well. Mike, let's start with how optimistic do you think the league should be that this is going to accomplish what they hope it'll accomplish?
Well, I'm optimistic that they're going to accomplish what they wanted to accomplish. I'm not so sure I can accept the name dynamic. I don't. Why do we have to have a dynamic kickoff? Are we going to have now, they're going to make a punt play, and it's going to be the preposterous punt review. Yeah. I mean, I don't get that. But I think that, I'm happy that they finally decided that either get rid of the kickoff totally and put the ball at the 25-yard line, or come up with something that will have the number of returns increase from 1 out of 5 to maybe 3 out of 5. Mm-hmm. I think they were hoping to get 2 out of 5. What did we see in week 1 of preseason? We saw 4 out of 5. Now, is that an indication? Will that be what we see when the actual regular season starts? I don't think so. I think there's going to be teams that get burnt by a long return. They're going to say, the hell with this. Let's kick it in the end zone and give them the ball at the 30. It's only 5 yards different from last year. But I do think that we'll see more. I do think it's a really good aspect of the game that has been missing. It looks funky, but to me, after 2 weeks, nobody's going to care how it looks. I mean, it'll be kind of work its way, into the game itself and just seem normal at some point. So I think it's going to work, but I just don't know how many we're going to have and what tactics teams might use. But I really do think it's here to stay.
Maybe instead of the dynamic kickoff rule, they should call it the kickoff rule of mystery, right? Because we just don't know, Mike.
Just call it a damn kickoff, for God's sake. Now, we as media people, do we have to call it a dynamic kickoff? We got to call Twitter X now. Do we got to call, we're going to have a dynamic kickoff here. Okay, Jiminy Christmas.
Mike, what's some of the biggest changes you've seen in officiating football, over the years? Is it the proliferation of the pass? Is it, the speed of the athletes? What are some of the biggest differences you've seen over the years?
Well, I think, the game gets faster. The players get bigger and the game gets faster, which seems like that's impossible. How can these 325-pounders be fast? But they are. I remember coming out of college, when I was refereeing college football, you probably had 1 or 2 guys that were quick. Now you got 22 in the NFL. So the game has gotten faster. The game has gotten more difficult to officiate. But to me, clearly, the biggest thing is technology and what technology has brought to the game. I don't know if it's good. I really don't. I mean, I asked the question, and I've said this before. I've said it in speeches, which which doesn't make my comrades very happy necessarily. But if you ask me whether officiating was better now than it was 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I'd say probably not. And I think it's the technology that has created that. Yes, you're getting more things right, which ultimately they want to do, but it's caused people to be a little more hesitant on the field. It's caused them to be a little more reliant on technology. And I don't think it's a good thing. I mean, I'm a old guy that loves tradition, and I think the game should be played on the field. It should be coached on the field and should be officiated on the field. And I'm just not sure that technology and replay have accomplished what it wanted to. And what they wanted to was just to correct a big mistake, the big game-changing mistakes. Now we're looking at 5-yard sideline passes, and is the ball moving? Is it not moving? Did the player have it long enough or not long enough on a catch or incomplete pass? Technology puts its head in, and when it rears its ugly head, it's kind of impossible to get it out. And that's kind of the change that I've seen.
Mike Pereira with us, and he's back on Fox this year, NFL rules analyst. And, of course, he's the pride of Stockton. When you talk to basketball officials, they'll typically say, hey, charge or block is the most difficult call in basketball. I've asked baseball umpires what's the most difficult call in baseball, and I've had an umpire tell me, what's the check swing, because there's not actually a rule for it. I'm just wondering, football-wise, Mike, what would you say is the most difficult? I know it's more specialized officiating in football, but what's the most difficult call for a football official?
To me, it's clearly pass interference. I mean, everything's on the move. You're on the move as the official. The receiver's on the move. The defender's on the move. The ball is in the air. Everything's in motion, and you have to make this decision. It's a subjective decision, and it's really difficult. I mean, that was my position. And when you're on the move and bouncing around a little bit, trying to decide whether it's a foul or not, it's enormously difficult. And then I think it's made 10 times more difficult by being a spot foul. So a 40 yards downfield, and you get a call that is made, and it's a 40-yard chunk of yardage for the offense. And I would sit in my office in New York reviewing all the games, and you'd look and you'd say, oh my God, a pass interference call 40 yards away, and they were wrong. So you get a 40-yard mistake, and it's hard to overcome those. And, I'm the advocate of the college rule, always have been. You kick a guy in the teeth and it's 15 yards. You pull his jersey and it might be 50. And it just, to me, you put another level of pressure on that official that has to make that call, because he knows. I mean, he knows that it's a spot foul. That a Hail Mary at the end of a game, and in the end zone, it's a 50-yard pass. Do you call it? Do you not? When the ball ends up going to the one, it's just, to me, that's one that I think, as we did in the spring league, I think it's a better game. I don't think that a team should get a chunk of yards, and I used to fight for that. And they tell me, the competition committee would tell me, you'll take away the deep vertical passing game. And I said, no, you won't. And they said, yes, you will. They'll tackle a guy. And they say, do you watch college football on Saturdays? Good college football on Saturday? If they're close enough to commit pass interference, they're trying to make a play. They're not. Mm-hmm. And then I even said, look, I'll give you, which I did in the UFL this year, I'll give you this, that if they just reach out and tackle the guy, like on a double move or something like that, then we'll create that as a spot foul. But any other football type of act, defending against a pass, make it a maximum 15-yard penalty. But it ain't going to happen. I wish it would, but it's not going to happen. Most things I recommend don't get
done. Hey, Mike, let's stand along those lines. One of the calls or non-calls that sort of frustrates me is we don't see offensive pass interference as much. I feel like the defenders are severely at a disadvantage out there. Would you agree with that? And how tough is it to call offensive pass interference?
I think they're better now than they were. I mean, back in my day on the field, you just officiated the defense. It was hard because you were looking. you were looking at guys like Michael Irvin, who was so good at the subtle push, the subtle push that did create the separation. But, you just were kind of always focused on the defense. Now they've changed it up. If you look at the numbers, it's much better. But, you also have the West Coast style offense with all these crossing routes, where you're picking and, picking a defender. And you just have to be better than that. And they've made that a focus for the last few years. So I think it's better. But again, it's still, and everything it's so much judgment involved. Yeah, you give him a little flipper, but is it enough to create the separation? Did he get the full arms, straight out to get an extended arm? It's just really difficult. And it also, to me, it was really pointed toward the inequity. I mean, offensive pass interference is a 10-yard penalty with no loss of down, and defensive pass interference, is obviously a bunch. So it's hard. But to me, the passing and kicking game are the two most difficult plays in football to officiate. But you're right. I can understand your frustration, and although I will say I think they're getting better.
Mike Pereria is with us. We're thrilled to have Mike on, former NFL VP of officiating, of course, NFL on Fox rules analyst. So, Mike, you say that everything that you suggest, it doesn't happen. What if the commissioner came to you and said, Mike, I heard you on the radio, and look, you're right. You've got some great ideas. I'll give you carte blanche. Any one rule, Mike Pereira, you can change any one rule in the NFL right now. However you want to change it, where would you go?
Well, that's it. I would say, give me this one. Give me the pass interference.
Yes.
Give me that right away. Just give me that one. That's my one. I'll die a happy man, for God's sake. If you give me that one, my back surgery will be worth it. If you give me the pass interference rule, I will feel like I accomplished something in my mission to make the game better.
Mike Pereira joining us. Mike, any new rules or point of emphasis that you know of coming for this upcoming season?
I think it's pretty blah. I mean, the one that raised a lot of conversation was this hip drop tackle. And I get it. I mean, it's similar to what we did with the horse collar tackle back in my day, where Roy Williams, he used to just, instead of trying to wrap up, he would reach out with an arm and grab inside the collar of the jersey and pull the player backward. Williams' legs would swing around and trap the legs of the runner, and we had 5 season-ending injuries from his own tactic that we didn't see in anybody other than him. And so we brought in the horse collar rule, and this is the same type. It's a little more complicated, but it's basically wrapping around the waist. You grab around the waist, but you swing your legs around. You kind of unweight yourself, is the term they use. And you swing your legs around into the back of the runner, and it does the same thing as the horse collar did. And there were a lot of key injuries in there. So that was a big thing. And everybody said the same thing with the horse collar. Well, how is he going to tackle? How are they going to do? How's the defense going to do this? What can he do? Well, it's all a good point, but everybody over time seems to adjust. Now, we're not going to notice this because they're not going to call it. It's too difficult to call. And so they've been basically told, they being the officials, they've been told, don't call it, let us take care of it. So what does that mean? So that means they see it, they report it to John Runyon, who then issues a $15,000, $20,000 fine or whatever. So they'll use the fine system to address it at this point and really not have it being an officiating issue. I think actually it could have been. I mean, it could have been called on the field if you made it reviewable. I mean, they made other things reviewable. If you call this year, if you call roughing the passer for a hit to the head or neck area of the quarterback, and you see that there was no contact to the head or neck area, replay is going to jump in and reverse it. If you see intentional grounding called, and replay sees that the quarterback wasn't under pressure and he has to be under pressure to have intentional grounding, replay is going to jump in and reverse that. So they're starting to put some things in I call it like the sky judge, like people have talked about for years. They're talking about doing some of the things that we always talked about the sky judge doing, which I think since we've got replay and since we've got the technology, we might as well do it. And I was a bit surprised that they didn't make the hip drop tackle reviewable, but it's not going to be something that we end up talking about watching the games because basically it's going to go uncalled.
Mike Pereira is our guest. I got to tell you, Mike, I understand the importance of player safety, but I cringed a little bit when they outlawed the horse collar because the first time I was ever playing Pop Warner football on the Vallejo Vikings and I was playing linebacker and this guy ran right past me and caught a pass and I was chasing him. And that was the only way I could tackle him. I grabbed the back of his jersey. He went right down. That was the only way to tackle him. But I get it.
It's interesting because so many player safety rules over the last number of years, and it has changed the game. And, Tom Brady has actually come out and said that the game's too soft. And, well, guess who he works for now? He works for us. and guess who's going to be standing next to him during at least half of the regular season games? Me.
How about that?
So I'm going to be waiting for him to say the game's got too soft, and I'm going to fire back and say, we changed all these damn rules to protect you.
Right.
That's why this game has gotten so soft.
Yeah.
But, it is. I think you do all you can for player safety within reason, and I think it's the responsibility of the league to make sure that they do what can be done on college and the high school level to make it safer on all levels. And so I can't really disagree with anything they try to do to make the game safer.
Years ago, you said one of the most amazing things I've ever heard in one of these interviews. And
that worries me.
You were telling us about how the NFL has basically a target total offense of a score for each teams. And I just should have thought of that, but it's incredible to think about it, because the NFL is keeping they're monitoring how the games are going and how scoring's going. So my question is, do you think the NFL right now is fairly satisfied with the overall balance between offense and defense in the game right now?
No, I don't. I mean, I think if you look at the trends, they're downward trends when it comes to offense. And so when you look at passing yardage and rushing yardage, numbers are down. Scores down. Now, scores down maybe 1.5 points or something like that, but still it's down. And that's usually what the competition committee reacts to. So therefore, a point of emphasis this year, once again, is illegal contact because those numbers went down. And so you look basically at the game and say, okay, let's look at statistics like defensive holding and illegal contact, which are defensive fouls, and are they being called enough? And if they're not, whammo, here comes a point of emphasis. And so I think we'll see a little more of that this year, which may drive the numbers back up to where they'd like to be. But there's no question that they want that points per game to be up in that range of the mid 40s, the 43, 44, 45, and it has snuck down a little bit from there.
Hey, Mike, I looked at what the NBA did this past season, sort of midway through the year, created a more physical game. Have you ever seen in the NFL, something change throughout the year where the league comes in and says, guys, we got to tighten up on this, or we got to officiate this differently midway through the season?
No, I mean, I think that what happens during the season, I think, is the league does a substantial amount of work looking at all 17 crews to see how they are officiating the game. And you look at outliers, you look at the crew that all of a sudden, if you're averaging 14 fouls per game, and you look at a crew that's averaging 8, then you say, what's the issue here? And you might say to that crew, you might say, okay, where are you now on this? Where are you too light? Are you not calling holding like the other crews are? I mean, that's pretty much it. I think if you do something mid-season, to me, it's never fair. If you change a rule during the mid-season, which I don't think we ever did in my time, we did it once going into the playoffs, and it had to do with the clock. But if you change the rule during the middle of the season, I mean, what happened to the teams that got screwed in the first half of the season this rule?
Yeah.
You know, then you're thinking competitive advantage for the second half of the season for those that hadn't been involved in that. So you have to be real careful. But I would say in my time, you know, competition committee is the big driver, but you don't meet with them during the season. I mean, they do on more administrative stuff than rule stuff, so it's not likely to happen, and adjustments are going to be made in the off season, and adjustments are going to be made in the preseason. I mean, there is no question, you know, even though I used to lie through my teeth about this, you know, you'd call a bunch of illegal formation penalties because you tried to get the tackles up on the line of scrimmage, and then, you know, people would say to me, and media would say to me, well, are you going to call it the same way during the season, the regular season? I go, oh yeah. Well, I had every finger crossed. I had everything. I knew I was never going to survive if we had 10 off illegal formation penalties, but that adjustment is made, and you know, and we'll see how it looks, you know, after the 3 full weeks of the preseason.
Well, Mike, as we said, we're very happy that you're back and very happy that you're feeling better. We'll leave you with this one. Do you think your Giants, your beloved Giants, can find a way into the postseason after the way they've struggled the last few games?
I can't even get that damn runner off of second base to start the 10th inning. I mean, it's like we got a dynamic kickoff in the NFL, and we got a ghost runner in baseball. What the hell have we gotten ourselves into? Jesus criminy sake! You know, you have great pitching performances, and it goes to a reliever who's got to come in with a runner on second base and no outs, and they call him a ghost.
Do you know, Mike, under this rule, you could pitch a perfect game and lose?
Yeah, wouldn't that be unbelievable?
Very likely. But you could actually do that under these silly rules that they have now.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of silly rules, I think, in a lot of sports.
Yeah.
You know that there's goaltending in the NFL, right?
Would that be for blocking a kick or something? Or
so this is way back to R.C. Owens' days.
Yeah.
When he used to stand underneath the goalpost on field goal attempts by the kicker, the opponent, and if it was close to going over, he could jump up and bat the ball to keep it from going through going over the upright.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they said that just doesn't seem right. So they put in a rule, and, you know, maybe you call it interference, maybe you call it something, but no. I mean, let's call it what it is, right? Goaltending.
Yeah.
Goaltending. So there's actually a 15-yard penalty for goaltending, or you could award a successful field goal. Wow. Goaltending, National Football League.
How about that?
Yeah, never knew.
He should write a book, and again, he has, and it's excellent. After Further Review is a great book by Mike Pereria. Thank you, Mike. It's
you
a pleasure.
Guys are great. You know, anytime you want me during the season, feel free to reach out.
All right,
appreciate that very
Mike.
much.
Yep.
Take care, Mike, and thank you.
You got it.